They say the worst pain comes from those you'd take a bullet for. I was supposed to get married in 3 days. Instead, I found my fiancé tangled in sheets with my brother, in our bed, wearing my college hoodie, whispering his name. The whiskey burned my throat that night. So did the image. That was 5 years ago. And tonight, my phone lit up with my mother's name, for the first time since the funeral. Not a funeral for someone who died, but for everything I lost. Back then, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even punch Brandon in the face, though God knows I wanted to. Instead, I stood there like an idiot, bouquet in hand, watching my entire life dissolve into a cheap motel comforter and the sound of my brother's voice saying, "It's not what it looks like." It was exactly what it looked like. My name is Ethan Carter, and I come from a family that thinks image matters more than truth. My father was a pastor. My mother, queen of the church bake sale and a woman who believed appearances could cleanse any sin, especially if it stayed within the family. So, when the truth came out, guess who they blamed? Not the son who couldn't keep it in his pants. Not the woman who said yes to my ring and then to my brother's bed. No, it was me. "You were always so cold, Ethan," my mother hissed. "Maybe if you paid more attention to her. You're jealous. Brandon has always been more charismatic." Jealous. That word settled in my chest like a stone. I left town 3 days later. Sold the house, changed my number, deleted every photo, and moved from Indiana to Austin with nothing but 2 suitcases and a laptop. My fiancée married my brother a year later. I watched it on Facebook through an old friend's feed. They even used the same venue I booked for our wedding. They called their son Lucas Ethan Carter. I guess that was their idea of an apology. But I didn't forget. I didn't forgive. I rebuilt. 5 years later, I'm not the same man. Now, I own a fintech startup worth $26 million. I don't go to church, I don't do Christmas calls, and I sure as hell don't answer when my family reaches out, until today. When I saw my mother's name flash across my screen, my first instinct was to swipe it away. But something in me hesitated. After 5 years of silence, she called now. I answered. Her voice was older. Softer. But still layered in guilt-dipped sugar. "Ethan, we need to talk. Brandon's in the hospital. It's serious." I didn't say anything. She continued, "He's in a coma. A car accident. Samantha's struggling. And Lucas, he needs a father." There was a long silence. Then she dropped the bomb. "I know what happened between you all, but blood is blood. You're the only one we can turn to." She didn't say please. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask me how I've been in 5 years. Just assumed I'd come crawling back to the family that gutted me. But I smiled. Not because I was happy. Because I saw the door open, just a crack. Enough for me to walk in and burn the house down. The plane landed in Indianapolis on a cold Wednesday morning. I hadn't seen my hometown since I left, and it hadn't missed me. The same tired diners, the same rusted pickup trucks, the same people who never asked questions when my fiancée married my brother 3 months after our postponed wedding. I didn't book a hotel. I didn't need one. I had something better, a plan. But first, I had to play the role. My mom met me at the airport. Same tight bun, same "I'm suffering nobly" look on her face. Her hug smelled like lavender and old guilt. "You've grown a beard," she said. "You've grown more selective with your morals," I replied. She forced a laugh. "You always did have a sharp tongue. And you always did excuse betrayal," I thought. We drove to the hospital in silence. Brandon was in the ICU. Wires, tubes, machines. He looked like a man on pause. A man who'd taken everything from me and now lay there, motionless, powerless. Samantha stood at his bedside, clutching Lucas, the boy with my middle name and his eyes. She turned when she saw me. For a split second, something flickered across her face, shame, maybe. Or panic. Then it vanished, replaced by a polite mask. "Ethan," she said softly. "Thank you for coming." I looked at the boy. He was 5, quiet, shy, confused. "Hi, Lucas," I said. "I'm your uncle." The kid gave me a cautious smile. "You look like Daddy." I nearly choked. Samantha stepped forward. "We're trying to hold things together, but Brandon took care of everything. I don't know how to." I held up a hand. "Save it. I didn't come here to patch up old wounds. I came to talk business." Her mouth opened, then closed. Back at the house, my old house, the one they kept, my mother brought out tea like we were friends again. I sat across from them, leaned back, and began. "You said Lucas needs a father. Fine. I'll help, but on my terms." Samantha raised an eyebrow. "What kind of terms?" I smiled. "Let's call it a partnership. I'll support you financially, take care of the boy, even move back if I have to, but I want full oversight of Brandon's estate, his medical decisions, and any assets tied to Lucas." "What?" my mom snapped. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I asked. "You're asking me to step in. That means control. You want help, I want leverage." Samantha hesitated. "You'd be like a guardian?" "Exactly. Legally, temporarily. Until Brandon wakes up, if he wakes up." She exchanged a glance with my mother. Desperation does a lot to pride. "Fine," she said. And just like that, I had a foot in the door. They thought I was offering charity. But I was planting explosives. They invited me into their lives again, but this time, I wasn't Ethan the black sheep. I was Ethan the kingmaker. And I was going to burn their kingdom down from the inside. 3 days. That's all it took for me to slip into the role of the savior. Samantha cooked dinner like we were a family. My mother started texting me church quotes again. And Lucas, poor kid, warmed up to me fast. Too fast. Like he'd been starving for male attention, any kind. That broke something in me, but didn't stop the plan. I wasn't here to play house. I was here to play God. By Friday morning, I'd spoken with Brandon's lawyer, the same one who used to handle my finances before the fallout. Turns out, Brandon had been reckless with money. Between luxury cars, bad crypto, and a failed fitness startup, the golden child had turned most of his trust fund into dust. I chuckled. Of course he did. He always thought charm could pay bills. What he did have was life insurance, co-owned property, and a medical power of attorney that, thanks to Samantha, could be reassigned. "Just a few forms," the lawyer said. "You'll need Samantha's signature." She signed them that night. That weekend, I brought up the idea of financial support, not through random transfers, but through something bigger. A foundation. "We create a nonprofit," I explained, "in Brandon's name. The Carter Foundation for Road Safety. We honor him, raise awareness, and collect donations. You get help. Lucas gets a future. We keep the story alive." My mom nearly cried. Samantha looked suspicious. But then I pulled out mock-ups, logos, a website, a mission statement. All fake. All polished. They loved it. I called my assistant in Austin and set up a shell LLC. On paper, it looked clean, a fund with me as director, Samantha as the face, and Lucas as the symbolic heart. We launched quietly. A soft press release. A GoFundMe. A few carefully placed tweets from influencers I paid under the table. By Monday, the donations started rolling in. Strangers love sob stories. Especially American ones. At night, I walked through the house I once called home. Every room was familiar and foreign. The picture frames had been rearranged to erase me. Every family photo had been cropped, every trace of Ethan removed. But now? Now I was back in every conversation. In every decision. In every bank transfer. And they didn't even see it. The next step was deeper. I needed trust and dependency. So I pushed harder. I got Samantha invited to speak at a local benefit dinner. She didn't want to go. Said she hated public speaking. I insisted. The foundation needs a face. Your face. And she caved. That night, she wore a black dress and trembled behind a podium while I sat at a table, smiling like a proud business partner. She told the story of the accident. The struggle. The family that came together. She even mentioned me, voice shaking, eyes flickering with old ghosts. They say forgiveness is strength, she said, glancing at me. Ethan showed up when no one else did. The audience clapped. They ate it up. Afterward, she found me in the hallway, biting her lip. You know. I never said sorry. For what? I asked. You know what? I leaned in. It's not about saying sorry anymore, Sam. It's about fixing things. She nodded. But we both knew, she couldn't fix anything. And soon, she'd realize she never should have tried. In chess, the opening is about positioning. Control the board, take the center, force your opponent to play your game. By week 3, I had every piece in motion. Samantha was exhausted from playing the grieving wife. My mother was running the PR for the foundation like it was her second coming. And Lucas? He was starting to call me Dad when he was tired, just once or twice, but enough to make my stomach twist. That wasn't part of the plan. But I didn't correct him. The Real win came when I got control of Brandon's assets. Technically, it was Samantha's signature that unlocked it all. In her overwhelmed state, she let me temporarily manage his investment accounts and the equity in their home. She thought it was for Lucas. She didn't know I'd already funneled everything into a holding company under my name, for tax purposes. No one read the fine print. No one ever does when they're desperate. By now, the foundation was growing. Donations passed $250,000 in under a month. I hired a designer to make it look legitimate, bought fake volunteers to post on Instagram, and even got a few local news stations to run puff pieces. My face stayed out of the spotlight, always behind the curtain, the strategist, the savior in silence. The public saw Samantha, the noble widow. They saw Lucas, the innocent boy. And they saw Brandon, the fallen hero. What they didn't see was me, moving pieces. I formed a board of directors. 3 members, me, my buddy from Austin, and a woman I hired on Fiverr to act as a nonprofit compliance officer. All of it fake. All of it legal enough to pass casual inspection. With the board in place, I had full decision-making power. I set my own salary as executive director, $180,000 a year. Fun fact, it was the same amount Brandon once bragged he made annually when we were younger. It felt poetic. Samantha didn't ask questions. She was too busy running between the hospital and home. My mother played the role of doting grandma, clueless to the financial guts behind the scenes. But there was one person I couldn't ignore. Lucas. One evening, he showed me a crayon drawing. It was us, holding hands, standing in front of a house. Me, him, and a woman with red hair. Not Samantha. Who's that? I asked. He smiled. That's Mommy, but nicer. Like, happy Mommy. That hit hard. For a moment, I forgot the game. Forgot the revenge. All I saw was a kid caught in the wreckage of selfish adults. But that feeling passed. Because this was never about him. This was about the brother who took my life, the woman who helped him, and the family who buried me before I was cold. Week 5, the final prep began. I hired a private investigator to dig into Brandon's past 5 years. What he found was gold. Brandon had been cheating on Samantha, multiple times. One was with her best friend. Another with someone from his gym, a man. I smiled. Not because of who he was sleeping with. But because secrets are leverage. And leverage was fuel. I had everything I needed. The foundation was a rocket. Samantha was the face. Lucas was the heart. And I was the fuse. Ready to blow the whole thing up. There's a moment in every long game when the trap clicks shut. Not with a bang, not yet, but with a soft, satisfying click. That moment had arrived. I just needed to light the match. It started with a leak. An anonymous email sent to a local journalist, someone I'd researched months before. A guy with a taste for drama and just enough ethics to wait for confirmation before running a story. Subject line: Local hero or hidden fraud? Attached were PDFs of Brandon's cheating texts, financial mismanagement, and a list of hush money Venmo payments labeled consulting fees and loyalty bonuses. I'd collected every file through my fake compliance officer, who now conveniently resigned from the foundation, citing internal concerns. I didn't sign the email. I didn't need to. But the reporter bit. He emailed back, asking for a source. I told him to check the public tax documents for the Carter Foundation. 2 days later, headlines hit local news. The Carter Foundation under fire, questions surround late husband's finances and charity management. Chaos. My mother called me 5 times before noon. Samantha showed up at my temporary condo, eyes wide and furious. What the hell is going on? I shrugged. I told you we needed a real compliance officer. You rushed things. You said this would help the family, Ethan. I stared at her. The family helped itself to my life, Sam. Now I'm just returning the favor. That's when her expression changed, like something ancient and ugly surfaced under her skin. You planned this. I didn't answer. She stormed out. But it was too late. The match was lit. The news spread like wildfire. People started pulling donations. Sponsors canceled interviews. A local news crew ambushed Samantha outside the hospital asking why her foundation paid $180,000 a year to an unseen executive director. She choked on camera. Back at the hospital, the staff started asking questions about who had financial and medical control of Brandon's case. The answer? Me. The paperwork was airtight. I didn't hurt him. But I sure as hell wasn't rushing any miraculous recoveries either. Then came phase 2. Remember those assets I transferred for tax purposes? Yeah. I started liquidating them. Legally. Quietly. The holdings were under my name. Samantha had signed them over. The house? Sold to a shell company. The investment portfolio? Cashed out. The luxury car Brandon leased? Repossessed. Suddenly, Samantha and Lucas were living in a half-empty home with mounting bills and no one left to help them. That's when she came to me again. Crying. I didn't know he cheated. I didn't know he ruined so much. Please, help us. I poured her a drink. I said. She looked at me like she wanted to throw the glass in my face. Instead, she drank. And broke. The final spark? A notarized letter I sent to the church board where my father used to preach, complete with Brandon's emails, photos, and a statement from one of his secret lovers, anonymously supplied, of course. They revoked their public support within 48 hours. My mother resigned from 3 volunteer boards, for personal reasons. The Carter name, once the Golden Family of Indianapolis, was radioactive. The trap had clicked. And the flame had spread. Spring turned into summer. The media moved on. The foundation faded into forgotten headlines. Samantha stopped answering calls, and my mother became a ghost in the town she once ruled. To the world, it was over. But for me, the real move hadn't even been made yet. Because revenge isn't just about taking things away. It's about leaving something behind. Something they can't get rid of. I had the idea while watching Lucas play with a toy train, same one Brandon and I used to fight over as kids. He was sitting on a worn carpet in Samantha's new apartment. She had reluctantly let me visit after a few texts about checking in. Lucas still liked me. Still called me Guy. That made it easier. We played for 20 minutes. He told me about a kid at school who stole his lunch and how he wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. It would have been sweet. If it weren't so useful. That night, I contacted my lawyer. I drafted a will, Brandon's. Forged, of course. Dated a year before his accident. It said that in the event of his incapacitation or death, sole guardianship of Lucas would go to my brother, Ethan Carter, citing concerns about Samantha's mental health and family instability. We even made it look like Brandon and I had reconnected before his accident. Texts, emails, notes. All fake. All timestamped through a virtual desktop I kept in Montana. The signature was spot on. I'd practiced it for weeks. Then I waited. And waited. Until the doctors finally admitted what Samantha already knew. Brandon would never wake up. His brain had atrophied. Machines were keeping him breathing. At best, he'd be a vegetable for life. Samantha didn't want to pull the plug. So I forced her hand. I sent the will. Anonymous envelope. No return address. Straight to her doorstep. The next night, she called. I swear to God, if this is real. It is real, I said, coldly. And if you contest it, I'll drag your entire life back through court. You'll lose everything. Again. She screamed. I hung up. The will did what I needed it to do. It didn't have to be fully legal. Just believable enough to scare her, to make her paranoid, isolated, panicked. A few weeks later, I got the final proof it worked. A restraining order. Filed by Samantha, against me, citing emotional manipulation and psychological threats. But she didn't challenge the will publicly. Didn't call a lawyer. Didn't risk the scandal. She just shrank. And with her, my mother did too. The Carter legacy was dead. But that wasn't the gift. No, the gift came later. A year later, in fact. When Lucas turned 10. Lucas turned 10 on a rainy Thursday. Samantha didn't throw a party. She couldn't afford one, and even if she could, the invitations would have gone unanswered. Most of the town still whispered behind her back, half out of pity, half out of contempt. But I sent a gift. A package. Wrapped neatly in brown paper, tied with string. No return label. Inside was a wooden box. Inside the box, a letter. No toys. No money. Just one folded page, written in clean handwriting, signed with a name that hadn't been spoken aloud in their house for months. Ethan. Samantha found it before Lucas did. She opened it, read the first few lines, and went pale. She knew better than to show it to him. But she read every single word. The letter wasn't cruel. Not directly. That would have been too easy. It started with a story, about two brothers who built a treehouse in their backyard when they were kids. How the younger one always wanted to climb higher, but the older brother kept pushing him down. It talked about trust. About betrayal. About what happens when family forgets what it means to protect its own. Then came the message. One day, Lucas will ask about me. And when he does, you'll have to choose between the truth and your comfort. If you lie to him, you'll lose him. If you tell him what happened, really happened, you'll lose yourself. Either way, I win. It was surgical. A slow knife. And the last line? I'll see him again. When he's ready. When you're not there to stop him. I knew Samantha wouldn't burn the letter. She'd hide it, probably in a drawer, under tax documents and expired coupons, but she'd never destroy it. Because she needed it. To remind herself of how deep it went. To feel the pressure of the noose every time she looked at her son. That was the true revenge. Not the scandal. Not the money. Not the silence. But the knowledge that her own son would one day ask questions she couldn't answer without choking on her guilt. My mother called a week later. She didn't mention the letter, but I could hear it in her voice. She asked if I was proud of what I'd done. I said yes. She asked if I was done. I said almost. Because the grand finale was still coming. And it wasn't about Samantha. Or Brandon. Or even my mother. It was about him. The boy. The only innocent in the wreckage. 2 years passed. Lucas was 12 now. Smarter. Taller. Sharper around the edges. A kid raised in the ruins of a once golden family name. He'd started asking questions. About his dad. About me. About why nobody ever talked about Uncle Ethan. Samantha tried to keep the stories clean, bland and careful. But kids aren't stupid. Lucas was already piecing things together. And then, one Saturday morning, he found the letter. She hadn't hidden it well enough. Tucked in a file cabinet under old tax forms, like I guessed. Lucas read it. All of it. Samantha came into the room and saw him holding the page, his face pale, his eyes locked on those final lines. I'll see him again. When he's ready. And just like that, I'd arrived. That evening, I got a message. A quiet knock at the door of my condo. Lucas. Alone. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. Just stared up at me, holding the letter like it was some kind of ancient map. Finally, he spoke. Is this all true? I didn't smile. Didn't hug him. I crouched down and said, it's enough of the truth. He nodded. She said you were dangerous. I shrugged. I am. But not to you. We sat at the kitchen table for over an hour. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. About Brandon. About Samantha. About how people who betray others often wrap themselves in the language of love and family. Lucas was quiet the whole time. When he finally stood up to leave, he said something that stopped me cold. She lied to me. My whole life. I want to stay with you. I didn't say yes. Not yet. But the seed was planted. And Samantha knew it. That night, she called me. Voice shaking. On the edge of something between fury and collapse. You poisoned him. No, I said. You did. I just told him where the rot started. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. She'd already lost. 1 week later, she filed a petition to relinquish shared custody, citing emotional stress, unstable work hours, and concern for her son's well-being. She didn't want a courtroom. Didn't want cameras. Lawyers. Discovery. She just gave up. Just like that, I had full guardianship of Lucas. Not because I fought for it. But because she surrendered. That was the final blow. That was the sound of the last domino falling. The scandal. The shame. The slow decay. It all led here. A boy. A quiet apartment. A man rebuilding trust one piece at a time. I never hit Brandon. Never screamed at Samantha. Never touched a single gun, or broke a single law. I just used their own cracks against them. And they shattered exactly how I knew they would. That's the power of clean